Hello, and today we're going to be doing a Gavin Newsom versus JD Vance deep analysis of the election. I've changed my source from the New York Times to Jackson Jude election map. He just has more of the margins and stuff than the New York Times has, so I like him more. Um, so Alaska, probably around 15 points, I would say. What is happening here? Well, I don't know what's happening there, but um, we're gonna say Anchorage flips and makes it a little more red. Um, some of the rural areas in Alaska where there's a lot of natives get more red, which they have been trending to the right. So Gavin Newsom wins Hawaii by a safe margin, probably 16 to 18 points, I'd say. Just because Hawaii is heavily trending to the right. It's only 23 points. It was only 23 points last election. It's probably going to get even more red. I think most of these, all of the islands are going to get more red. Um, for Washington, I'd say 17 to 16 points. I'm not saying 16 to 17. I know what people are going to say 6, 7, or whatever. I don't really like 6, 7 as a meme, but Washington, I think the Seattle area gets more red, and Spokane gets a little more red too. But uh, Clam gets more blue. It probably turns solid actually. Um, some of these counties over here might flip, like Pacific maybe will flip. But the Seattle area is way bigger than those, so it basically makes it more red as a result because it's more populated. Oregon, I'd say 15.8%. Portland's just trending left off a cliff. I don't see any of the Portland areas shifting rightward. Maybe Salem, which is in Marion, Oregon, might shift a little rightward, but the Portland area, um, Bend, I think, is in this area. Um, yeah, it's just not going to be good for Republicans in the long term. California, this is where Gavin Newsom shows his weakness. He probably wins it by 18 points. This is his home state, and he underperforms Kamala Harris, California is also Kamala Harris's home state. But I think Gavin Newsom is so hated in California, he would only win it by 18 points. I could see San Bernardino, Riverside, Fresno getting a little redder. I can see Los Angeles getting redder. Um, Orange County might flip, but I just see maybe the San Francisco area shifts left, but it's not enough to make it anywhere close to Kamala Harris's margin. Nevada, I think a lot of Californians are moving from California to Nevada, so they wouldn't like Gavin Newsom. I think it would probably be a 6-point margin just because how heated Gavin Newsom is in the states bordering the red states, I should say, or battleground states. Nevada and Arizona are battleground states. Um, Nevada would probably go Republican by a larger margin. I think Reno, which is Washoe County, flips. Clark might get a little closer It might even trend blue because the workers don't like what Trump is doing right now. I'd say just because the tourism business is failing Nevada now. So it's gonna be a little more blue. Las Vegas is gonna be bluer because it relies on tourism. Idaho, pretty self-explanatory, like 41.1%. Um, I think Lata shifts become solid. Um, Idaho Falls, Twin Falls, and Boise might get a little redder, and that makes it 41 points. Utah, I'd say 17 points. It's trending left off a cliff. I don't see it um, shifting right, and it's probably going to shift left by a huge margin. I see Salt Lake getting bluer, the counties surrounding it getting bluer, um, and that makes it less red. Arizona, I'd say 7.9%. Phoenix probably gets a little redder, but the rules just heavily shift towards Donald Trump. I mean, JD Vance, my bad. Um, and then you have um, Apache, Coconino, Pima, Santa Cruz, the blue counties. They're probably going to shift a little red, mainly Pima, but I think Santa Cruz, Coconino, and Apache might get a little bluer. Montana, 21, 21 points. Um, Lewis and Clark, which is Helena, probably gets a little redder. Um, I could see the rules maxing out for JD Vance. Billings might get a little redder. Um, Deer Lodge will flip probably. And then we got Wyoming, 45 to 47 points. I'm not really a good pollster in Wyoming. I really don't know where the big cities are. Well, there's like one big city and it's right here, Cheyenne. But it's not even big. It's like the smallest city in of the main cities in America. So Colorado, um, it has a lot of Californians living in it, but it's the opposite of Nevada, where they're mainly Democratic leaning, um, Democratic leaning Californians, and I think Denver, the areas around it, probably shift left. I meant to make that solid. Maybe Pueblo gets righter because it actually is trending to the right. Um, Grand might flip. I think the rural Hispanic counties might get redder, but the Denver, Colorado Springs area are going to shift left, which makes it around 12.5%. New Mexico, around 0.4% for the Democrats. I see Socorro, Guadalupe, Cibola, getting red, turning red, and getting redder. I see Las Cruces getting redder. Albuquerque probably gets redder too. I just think Santa Fe and Sandoval move leftward, which makes it almost just go to the Democrats, but by the barest of margins. Um, North Dakota, South Dakota, pretty self-explanatory. North Dakota is like 37 points. I think Fargo gets a little redder. And uh, so does Grand Forks and uh, what was the other city? What's the main city? I'll think about it. Um, South Dakota, 30 points. Sioux Falls gets redder. That's about it. Nebraska, Nebraska at large is safe. So is the third district. The first district is likely, and the second district is likely. Um, the first district is trending heavily to the left because they redrew the lines, making it more bluer, and they tried to make the second district more red, but it turns out to be a dummy mander. The third district gets redder, which helps Nebraska become like a 19-point margin, which is worse than Donald Trump did last time. Kansas, 18 points. I think Topeka flips. Riley County flips. Maybe the Kansas City area gets a little redder. Mainly Wichita gets redder, which makes it 18 points. It doesn't like get heavily redder, but just enough to shift the state red a little bit. Oklahoma 36.3%. Um, Oklahoma City maybe flips, but to counteract that, all of the safe red areas get redder, um, which makes it basically a dead cat bounce by like 2 points. It gets redder. Um, Texas, I'd say 15 points. I think Tarrant might become safe. Williamson probably stays about the same. Fort Bend might flip. Um, the southern counties get redder, and or the Rio Grande Valley gets redder. Dimmitt might flip. So maybe Jim Hogg and Brooks. Zavala might get competitive. Um, but that makes it a 15-point margin. Um, Minnesota, I think he does have Josh Shapiro as the VP, which would help him in the Midwest. But Minnesota has had so many scandals. Um, I think most of the voters are tired of Democrats. Um, I'm not. I don't know if they would vote Republican in a presidential year, but they might. So we're gonna say definitely Clay would flip in that scenario. Rice, Scott, and Carver get more red. So does Anoka. I think Nicolette and Blue Earth get redder. Um, and then I think Washington becomes tilt, and Dakota gets. I should make this tilt. It would probably be around a 0.6% margin, just because Minneapolis does probably shift a little rightward, not enough to like make it a super big large margin, but it does move right enough to make it red. Um, Iowa, I'm gonna say 16 points. Um, Dubuque, um, what's the city in Davenport? Um, get more red. I think this side of the state gets more red. Um, Polk becomes likely. Blackhawk Blackhawk flips. Lynn becomes lean, which is Cedar Rapids, and Des Moines I should have said Polk / Des Moines becomes likely, which makes it 16 points. Missouri, 21 points. I'd say uh, these this Kansas City northern suburbs Clay becomes solid red. Um, Plate becomes likely, making it way redder. Because those are heavily populated, like very more populated than the rest of the suburbs around Kansas City. Um, I think St. Louis is losing population, which makes it more red by default because St. Louis is a Democrat stronghold. Um, Arkansas, I'm going to say 32 points, which is a pretty good margin. It keeps getting redder and redder each election. Um, I think this is where Fort Smith is. Fort Smith becomes way more red, like 8 points redder. No, not 8 points as the margin. Um, Jonesboro gets redder, and then these two, Little Rock gets redder, and these counties over here flip. Chillicothe, St. Francis, Lee, Crittenden, and then you have Louisiana, 24 points, which is 2 points over performance. I think Chevronport, just right, flipping Caddo County, St. James, Iberville get redder, St. Helena flips, New Orleans probably stays about the same, and then you have Lafayette gets redder, and that's about it. We're going to go more into the south. Mississippi, Alabama. Mississippi, 23.6. Rankin, Madison, the Jackson suburbs get redder. The Black Belt area gets redder. These counties near the coast, or the Mexican Gulf, or Gulf of America, as some would call it, um, would get redder. I think DeSoto gets bluer though, making it more like countering it. Alabama, Huntsville becomes solid. Madison, the county. The Black Belt gets more competitive. Russell County flips, and Birmingham gets closer. Um, is that what the county's called? No, Jefferson. We're gonna go to Florida. 16.6%. I think Palm Beach flips. Miami-Dade gets redder. The coastal area around here gets redder. I think Orlando becomes likely. Um, Duval might flip back. Tampa gets redder. Pinellas, Osceola, and Seminole get redder. And then you have Georgia, which would be likely. I don't see Gavin Newsom and Josh Shapiro juicing up the black turnout in Atlanta. They're not that exciting to most voters in general. Um, I think the outer suburbs of Atlanta get more red. Uh, I think Fulton, DeKalb, Clayton, Gwinnett get more red. The outer suburbs get a little bluer. And then the rural areas in the state get way redder, and Savannah stays about the same. Then you have South Carolina safe. South Carolina would be around 20-point margin. And I forgot to say Georgia's margin, which would be around 5 points. I think Spartanburg, Greenville, around this area gets redder. The coastal areas get redder. I think Sumter flips. So does Marlboro. Maybe even Charleston. 20 points is a big jump from, what is it? I think it's 17. Yeah, 17. Um, North Carolina, same thing with as Georgia. I don't think he's going to juice out that black turnout. I think the rural areas around here get redder. I think Wilson flips. Um, the big metro areas stay around the same margin. Durham probably lower turnout. And then it would probably be like 6 points, around 6 points. Tennessee, I'd say around 31.4% margin. I think Haywood flips, Knoxville and Chattanooga get redder. I think Memphis and Nashville get a little bluer, but all of the rural parts get redder, which kind of counteracts it. Um, and then let's go to Kentucky. Kentucky would probably be 31 points. Louisville probably shifts leftward. It's been shifting left. So does Lexington. Frankfurt gets redder, and the areas around Louisville and Lexington get redder. And then you have West Virginia. I don't even have to explain it. 43 to 44 points. You got Ohio. I'd say around 16-point margin. JD Vance really will perform really good in his state. The suburbs around Cleveland and Akron get redder. Mahoning, which is I think Springfield, or we're just gonna call it Mahoning. Mahoning gets become safe. Um, and then you have Athens, which gets a little bluer. Columbus, Delaware County gets bluer. I think Dayton flips, and Cincinnati gets a little bluer. So you have this area, and JD Vance will win on this state. Um, Indiana probably 20 points. I can see South Bend flipping, St. Joseph County. Tippecanoe gets a little redder. Hamilton gets a little bluer. Gary gets a little redder. Kind of counteracts each other, but we're going to say that happens. Illinois, I'd say 7.6%. The Chicago area shifts heavily rightward. As I've been saying, Gavin Newsom is not going to turn out a lot of black voters. Winnebago probably flips, and Springfield, which is in Sangamon County, gets a little redder. And then these two areas don't really change. And then you have Wisconsin, I'd say 1.3%. I think green flips. The rural areas get redder. the Milwaukee suburbs get bluer, but Racine and Kenosha get a little, like a lot redder, maybe even turn solid. Milwaukee gets bluer, Madison gets bluer, Dorr might flip, Green Bay gets redder, Winnebago too. So it's basically dead heat in Wisconsin. Michigan, probably 3.3%. Saginaw gets redder. Detroit turnout is incredibly low, probably in the like 70% range or maybe even 60%. Um, maybe even lower than that, like 40. Macomb gets redder. All of the areas around Detroit get redder. Oakland becomes likely. Genesee flips, which is Flint is in, and then uh, I think Grand Rapids gets bluer, and Lansing stays about the same. So, and then you have the Northeast. So we're gonna start in Maine, where Gavin Newsom wins Maine at large by a lean margin around, let's say, 2.4%. I think Andrew Scoggin, Kennebec, Bangor gets redder. Waldo flips. Hancock gets closer. These areas get closer. Cumberland, York might get become likely. Cumberland shifts blue, which is Portland. Um, and then you have New Hampshire, which would flip Republican. My voice just cracked? Um, New Hampshire, Nashua, um, Manchester get redder, which flips the state. Vermont, well, New Hampshire's like a 0.5% margin for Republicans. Vermont, 0.6%. I mean, 31.2%. Basically stays around the same margin. Nothing really changes. Massachusetts, 22 points. I could see Bristol flipping, making it making Massachusetts not an all blue state. Um, Connecticut, 7.4%. Um, a lot of these counties might get a little redder. This isn't the new county map, so I'm not even going to say which counties I think would flip, um, because I don't know them by heart. Rhode Island, probably 3.2%. I just think Providence shifts heavily to the right. So does Kent. It doesn't make it enough to flip the state. Kent flips, obviously. Um, it just makes it more competitive because I don't think Josh Shapiro or Gavin Newsom really have an appeal to Protestants, um, or Catholics, for that matter. I think there's Protestants and Catholics in Rhode Island. I don't think either of them appeals to that. Um, New York, 9 points. New York City shifts heavily red. Nassau gets more red. Suffolk becomes safe. Long Island, I should say. Staten Island gets redder. Um, Upstate gets redder. Broome County flips. Essex. And these counties stay about the same. Um, and then you have New Jersey. I think it would flip by 0.2%. I don't see him doing good with uh, New Jerseyans. I don't think New Jersey likes Philadelphia. I think they hate it. And Josh Shapiro's in Pennsylvania, so they're going to associate him with Philadelphia. I know this is a stretch, but I'm just trying to make it more interesting. Bergen County flips. Middlesex gets closer. All these areas get closer. Passaic gets redder. Morris, Hunter, Dunn, Atlanta gets redder. All the lean counties become likely, I should say, or safe, likely or safe. Delaware, probably 9.8%. I could see Dover flip, Kent, which Dover's in, flipping. Sussex getting redder. Um, Newcastle, which is Wilmington, gets a little bluer, but it does make it a little redder. Actually, I think Newcastle also gets redder, which is where Wilmington is. Um, Maryland, 26 points. Baltimore gets a little redder. I'm just going to say that. DC, um, not much to say. Plus 80 for Democrats. Pennsylvania, a lot of people in Pennsylvania hate, in the rural areas, hate Josh Shapiro, but I think he still has enough popularity to win it barely by like 0.4%. Um, even though he's not the top of the ticket, he does bring Gavin Newsom to the finish line. Philadelphia gets bluer. Bucks flips. Northampton, Erie, Monroe, Lackawanna gets bluer. Um, and that's about it. Lehigh might get a little redder. And Philadelphia, actually. Um, the Philadelphia suburbs get bluer. Um, Philadelphia gets redder. And Virginia. Now, this is a tough one because Abigail Spanberger is pretty much making it easy for a Republican win in 2028. She's higher taxes, disrespecting the rural voters, making even the elites in Northern Virginia angry at her. She's making it easier for a Republican win in Virginia, making it like 0.3%. I could see Loudon flipping. I could see Prince William getting closer. Stafford flips. Chesapeake, Virginia Beach flips. Chesterfield gets redder. The Richmond area in general gets redder. Montgomery flips. All these tiny little towns get redder. Roanoke gets redder. And that basically makes the state um, barely Republican. So it's 334 to 204. Um, as you can see, the map looks a little cursed. Pennsylvania's Democrat, but New Jersey is Republican. That's pretty weird. But I can see this realistically happening. Um, Now, it's not entirely out of the realm that Gavin Newsom actually wins this. He could flip Minnesota, New Jersey, Virginia, New Hampshire back, win Michigan, Wisconsin, and then win the election. Um, but it's still entirely possible that this scenario could happen. I'm probably yapping too much, so hope you have a good day. See you later.